A ver si continúo completando el resto del panel.
The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas.
Bueno.
It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Bernardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it.
Maybe.
To take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course. Bernardo had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. And he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage.
Bueno, vamos a ver. ¿Cómo se llama? Estoy buscando un segundito un mapa. Bueno, creo que ya he hecho casi todas las combinaciones posibles que se podían hacer de Sky Reaper, pero no estoy seguro del todo. Bueno, voy a descartar que el Sky Reaper tenga más finales, ¿vale?
The transcendent.
O sea, tenemos 3 inicios. Lo que podría darnos 8 finales. Por cada uno. 3 por 8, 24. No lo sé. No tiene por qué. En cualquiera de los siguientes pasos los podemos ramificar. No sé.
As he set foot on the island, Bernardo couldn't help feeling a bit curious.
Venga, que te tires.
Was Lapino still waiting to be rescued? No. He was probably drinking champagne with the ravens. Did ravens drink champagne? Did rabbits? Bernardo felt oddly thirsty, come to think of it. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Bernardo never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it? You blinked.
Pero hostia, como un pan estos bichos.
The people who had built this castle, did they even know what monstrous weapon lay hidden within their walls? The Sky Ripper could destroy anything it touched, or so the legend said. As the Transcendent Emperor had fought the Lost Gods, thousands of thousands had died. But Bernardo had been through wars. The only merciful war was a short one.
Mierda, me ha cortado el combo, hijo de la gran puta. Ahí va. haga el combo de 20 2 veces. Ah. ¿Por aquí? No. Por aquí no es. Como si no me dieran experiencia cargarme estos, ¿no? Yeah. Me cago en tu puta madre. Que va a dejar para cambiar de espada. Vamos, combo en las hostias como panes. Hostia. Es algo que no he visto nunca, por ahí no he ido jamás. Vale, por ahí. Ahí. Esto es nuevo. Joder, melocotones, ¿no? Oh, muy bien.
See? That wasn't so hard.
Ya hemos llegado, este es el final. La armadura.
There it was. Skyripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device was in... How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Skyripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach. Zenobia had just invaded it with her father's Raven battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it?
Was it?
He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him.
Estoy apuntando en un papel, en los recorridos que estoy siguiendo. Vamos a ver. Es la segunda lección. Elección que tengo que hacer. Hemos cogido... Teníamos... La Pino arriba antes, ¿no? La Pino... Skyripper. Y la de abajo del todo... No me acuerdo qué era, pero Skyripper. Y aquí tenemos dos opciones, que es Zenobia y el núcleo. El núcleo. Y si elegimos Zenobia...
Leonardo asked himself why he changed course to confront Zenobia. He had no idea. Sometimes he would just do things, and he could never figure out why he'd done them. Usually, they worked out. After all, he was a hero.
Bueno. Tenía que haberlo hecho de principio, me cago en la leche. En el paso 1 tenemos esto. En el paso 2 podemos elegir entre Zenobia y el núcleo, que es lo que vamos a jugar ahora.
The truth is, though, you wanted to see her, wasn't it?
¿Qué te tires?
It had been a dozen years since Swordfru School. He'd followed every rumor about her, every scrap of news. Not that he still loved her. After all, she was his enemy. No, it was solely because know your enemy. All right, maybe he should stop pretending. He knew exactly how she felt about him. But their love affair always ended with a tragic death. Unless, maybe he could find a way to dodge tragedy. Surely he could. Couldn't he?
Vale, cuanto más rápido mejor.
Hey, did you guys ever learn to swing dance? Oh, well, too late. He couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core, could he?
El atajo.
Renato hated gogglers, and it freaked him out to cut them.
Vale, salud a tope.
Renato wasn't entirely sure how he was going to capture Zenobia. She'd be expecting him. And he didn't have Lapino to cook up a clever plan. Why was it again that he hadn't got the core? Maybe because the results tended to be disastrous. These streets were familiar. The Swordfru School was closed now, but he had been down that street 1,000 times. He knew that pub. He knew that alley. He knew the alley behind it much too well. No wonder Zenobia had chosen to invade this island herself.
¡Vamos! ¡Mándelo todo, hijos de puta! Nuevo nivel.
Renato slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound at all.
Vamos cuando Zenobia nos hace la llave del sueño o lo que sea.
He reached her bedroom.
Y nos echa una maldición, le decimos dónde.
It's a trap,
Shouted the Emperor.
Damos información.
I'll meet you at the outpost, and I'll bring my interrogators.
If Renato came face to face with the Emperor,
Y aquí puedo elegir
maybe he
emperador.
would assassinate him. But maybe it would be smarter and safer to turn Zenobia against her father.
Oh, Zenobia. Vale. Entonces aquí ya he hecho los dos. Tanto uno como otro. Si... Yo no sé si hay una cuarta
You're
lección.
lying, she said. Somehow you're lying. The spell hadn't worn off yet. He had to tell the truth. The trick was in making sure she wouldn't believe it.
The core is perfectly safe,
He said. And he tried his hardest to sound sincere.
so is the Iblis stone.
In fact, I was trying to get them myself. Fine then. Interrogate as it is.
Bueno, venga. Hemos hecho 3 selecciones ya. Script Reaper, Zenobia y Emperador.
It was a short, safe landing. At least this part of the Nexus hadn't changed too much. Zenobia had been taking him to the Imperial outpost. She'd never expect him to go there by himself. Well, maybe she would. You never knew with her.
Hostia, me he despistado. Está mi rollo. Vaya pedazo de hostias, chavales.
Imagine getting a horse up in one of these things. He would be cursing a blue streak.
Aquí. Vamos a ver dónde metemos el siguiente nivel. Yo creo que hemos cogido resistencia a tope. ¿Esto qué hace? Perdón, he pasado. Aumenta más tu resistencia. Aumenta más la magia de espada. Energía de espada máxima. Y esto. Estadísticas. Vamos a completar esta a ver qué hace.
Cool. Wish I could do that.
Coger el tiempo de todos excepto Arenaro. Por aquí venido. Seguro que por aquí. Está muy claro, Segundo que estoy buscando a ver si en internet hay algún puto mapa. Pues sí que hay un huevo de movidas. Bueno, lo tengo por aquí, ahora, luego me construyo el esquema. Tengo por ahí todos los finales posibles. Venga, pones arriba. Hala, para que volváis. Pero botones.
Bernardo knew Zenobia, and Zenobia knew him. She'd suspected a trick. Now he'd vanished. She would probably guess that was his plan all along. Perfect. Maybe she wouldn't use the Sky Ripper.
At least not without taking it to the scientists at the observatory first. Meanwhile, the Emperor will be coming to the outpost personally. This could be good.
Buah, la que he liado aquí en un momento, ¿no? O sea, cuando lleva el... por 20S a la bonificación de 20 hostiazos. Mira, aquí está el emperador. A estas no las he zumbado todavía nunca.
Bernardo was face to face with the Emperor's bodyguard. They looked very tough, but the Emperor held them back.
Oh, where's my daughter?
And how would I know that? Bernardo grinned at him.
She lured me here so that you could kill me. Didn't she?
Ah, don't be ridiculous, said Renato, trying his best to sound convincing. She loves you.
Oh, I knew it. The rabbit told me I couldn't trust her.
The Emperor hopped out the door. His phalanx of bodyguards retreated carefully. Renato heard someone call, "Arrest her!" as they left. Well, that's a job well done, thought Renato. Now the fleet will be in all sorts of disarray. But maybe he could find her in the mountains. She always used to go to the mountains to hide from the world. Maybe he could even turn her against her father. Or maybe he could reap the benefits of the chaos of his own. It was time to report to the Rebel Council, and then launch the attack on a divided and very confused Imperial fleet.
Vale, la cuarta decisión es... ¿más Zenobia? O los rebeldes. ¿No? Sí, rebeldes, creo que es esto. No sé cuántos, un general, no estudiantes, color. Sí, rebeldes. Vale, entonces estoy dibujando en papel, ¿eh? El que no, que ya lo hemos hecho. Vamos a hacer de los rebeldes.
Bernardo was very proud of himself. He told the Empire everything, but now they didn't believe anything, and it looked like the Emperor didn't trust his daughter anymore either. There were some advantages to having a slippery reputation, weren't there?
Vale, vale, por buen camino, chavales.
Bernardo wondered if he'd really fooled the Empire. He guessed he'd know soon enough. If the skies darkened with 1,000 dropships, then he'd know the Empire believed his map of the rebel base's secret location. They certainly seemed to be looking for it. There were ravens everywhere. But where weren't there ravens these days?
Fresh meats.
Tengo que recuperar un poco de vida. Vamos a cogerme los botones. ¡Mierda! Me ha quitado el combo, será cabronazo.
Maybe the Emperor would attack Zenobia. The ravens, divided into two armies, would slaughter each other. Then the rebellion would just show up and claim victory. The council would be overjoyed that Renato had given away all their secrets.
Ahora, ¿esto? He retrocedido. O he avanzado antes. Yo qué sé. Yo qué sé. ¡Hostias! ¿Qué ha sido eso? ¿Qué ha pasado? De repente para el tiempo. No sé cómo lo he hecho, ¿eh?
It was actually very fine weather, except for the occasional shower of ravens. And no one was burning the ruins down with the mighty power of a god's eye. If the Empire believed anything he'd said, they certainly weren't showing it. Well, the eyes have had it.
Aquí es donde me zurraba la última vez por ir apresurado.
Long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on
Estamos al
fire.
lado.
So far, so good.
Buah, chaval. Para el tiempo, tengo el combo del copón, me muevo la velocidad del vértigo. Tengo el combo, chavales. Pues mato un toque. Mierda, será cabrón. Habría sido muy bonito acabar esa pelea sin recibir ningún golpe. Esta base rebelde encontrada.
As he told his hilarious adventures to the Rebel Council, he began to realize they weren't laughing. Just staring at him with those big bug eyes.
Zenobia let you escape?
Asked the speaker.
How do we know you're not a double agent?
Then I wouldn't tell you about her at all.
Maybe you're trying to sound like an idiot, so we don't realize how clever you are.
Croaked the speaker. No, I promise you, I really am that much of an idiot. Renato was about to say when a half-dozen Imperial ships began to bomb the base.
He's betrayed us!
Croaked the toads, and Renato decided it would be good to be somewhere else. He boarded the Farfarer and got out of there. The wind ruffled Renato's fur the wrong way. So the rebels thought he was lying too? Because a half-dozen lousy dropships had probably just tripped over the rebel base? Okay, technically he had betrayed its location, but not willingly. And he'd made up for it, hadn't he? Then something exploded. A cannon shot. The Farfarer plunged out of the clouds. The rebels had hit his ship.
As the Farfarer plummeted towards the abyss, he launched himself into the sails of an Imperial ship.
Buah, chaval. Esto es nuevo.
The Farfarer was gone. It had been a beautiful ship. And fast. He could do the Kestrel run in 12 furlongs. Or so the salesman had told him.
He would show them. He would be the hero of the final battle. They'd know whose side he was on then. That's what it meant to be a hero. To go on fighting, even when both sides were trying to kill you.
The portal was heavily guarded. It must go someplace they really didn't want it to go.
This would be the perfect place for a tic-tac-toe board.
Multiplicador por 20 y... Dios. Mierda, me han tocado. ¿A dónde vas? No ven ni las exclamaciones de los enemigos.
Rebels were fighting ravens everywhere, and not a super weapon in sight. No one was summoning giant murder birds out of the clouds. There were no locusts, no rain of fire. Something blew up nearby, and Renato decided it was not time to stop and ponder. Just as well. He liked acting much better than pondering.
Utiliza la... a ver qué pasa.
Oh, now you smell even worse.
Joder. Me hace unas hostias como panes, la de fuego también. Parece que ya llegamos a la fase final. No sé, recupero toda resistencia antes de meterme ahí. Venga, que ya tengo un multiplicador bonito. ¡Mierda! Me he emocionado. Joder. Otra vez me he emocionado.
Finally, Renato reached the Emperor's ship, and there he saw a strange sight. Zenobia being led in shackles by Lapino with a squad of ravens. What? Lapino was working with the ravens?
El puto
Was he
Lapino.
some sort of traitor? Of course Lapino was working with the ravens. But the Emperor still thought Zenobia was a traitor? Renato felt oddly bad about that. Should he run down there and rescue her? Oh, but she was the enemy. Then he heard a whistling sound. He looked straight up and saw a rebel ship. It was dropping rather large bombs. One of them kept getting bigger as it fell. Huh? Oh. Oh,
Puto
again?
Lapino.
But he already had all the secrets he needed. He was sure of that. He must have not used them the right way. Ah, what was the best, worst mistake he could make? Probably trusting that traitor Lapino.
El circo volador. Historia completada número 1. ¿Qué tipo de héroe eres? Un héroe que sigue luchando incluso cuando ambos mandos intentan acabar con él. Recompensa. Esencia que no me vale ni para dar por culo. Ya tenemos la número 1. Vale. No me quedan menos. Voy a hacer una esquemita. ¿Vale? La historia 1 la tenemos. La historia 2, que es la que nos falta. Vale, esta tengo que elegir. Gema, no me preguntes cómo. Zenobia. Spare Zenobia. Estoy copiando de un blog. Y tirar gema. Historia número 3. Gema. Zenobia. Spare Zenobia. Y... Perdona, me he equivocado. Estaba copiando la misma. Estaba copiando la misma 2 veces. Lapino. Rescatar al Lapino, al pesado. El núcleo. En el segundo paso, atacar Outpost. Y Lapino again. Vale. 1, 2, 3. La cuarta historia también es de Lapino. Zenobia. Lapino plan no. No plan de Lapino. Y confiar en Zenobia. Vale, yo creo que con... Vamos a intentar la historia número 2, que la tengo aquí copiada.
The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Renato knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis Stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it. To take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. And he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage.
Vale, pues ahora la vamos a utilizar esta.
The island was windswept desert.
Que es ir a por la piedra del Iblis.
Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis Stone? Long hidden in the buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals? What was he doing here? Last time, the stone had fought him for possession of his own soul.
Tengo todo a punto de caramelo. No.
The Ravens were already here, cawing in frustration. They were still searching for a way in. Good. And he hadn't come too late.
Hola, qué hostiazo. Ni me he enterado. Perfecto. Coño, le he dado yo primero. Justo. Hola, se me ha bugueado otra vez el muñeco. No puedo andar. Pero qué desastre de juego, ¿no? Por lo menos esta vez tengo más resistencia. ¿Qué puta mierda? ¿Y ahora cuando me ataquen qué hago? No puedo moverme. Vaya mierda. Está bajando mucho mi valoración de este juego, ¿eh? Esta zona no me acuerdo de cómo va. Igual tengo que dejar que me maten. Vaya coñazo.
There had to be some way to use the Iblis stone. It was old, wasn't it? People are so much cleverer now. And Renato was pretty sure he was cleverer than most people.
Joder. No, que no puedo andar, tío. Voy a tener que dejarme morir.
Renato felt bad for littering, but these islands were short on trash cans.
Encima me da. Venga, mátame. No puedo andar, tío. Otro. Vale, venga.
My God. It's full of stars.
Lanzaros aquí a ver si puedo andar. ¡No puedo! Esto es muy de coña, ¿eh? ¡Qué puto desastre! No puedo, me doy con las paredes. Bueno, qué cojones. Me tengo que cargarme así la pantalla.
The
Estoy
Ravens
empezando a
at least could
cabrear.
not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders.
Dime que ya es la última parte de la pantalla porque hay veo muchas cosas abajo, ¿eh? Debo esperar a que se rellenen las barritas, si no nos haremos mayores. Vaya coñazo. Así es como te cargas un juego con un bug. Que me devuelvan mi dinero.
There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady foxes, with pictures and addresses and everything.
Creo que ya terminamos. Ahí está.
It was a
Joder,
stone
menudo
of the
coñazo.
purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made
Gema,
solid. Nervous, he picked it up. Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once.
And he had a sneaking suspicion the gem would try to control him.
Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the Transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. Not the core, said the stone anxiously.
But even though Renato knew how evil the gem was, he had a clever plan for dealing with it.
Vale. Ahora tengo que elegir a Zenobia.
Why was he listening to a talking rock?
Vale.
As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet, Renato had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun.
Was it the time of the lost gods before the Transcendent Emperor? Was it the
Bien,
future?
puedo correr.
It whispered. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls, its thirst for blood. All right, I get it.
This was going to be interesting.
Vaya. aquí vienen malos, ¿no?
On Zenobia's island were no match for Reynardo. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power, the stone told him.
He couldn't do worse with Zenobia than he'd done with the core. Could he? The market. It was going to be full of gogglers, wasn't it? Oh, it would have been so much more fun before the war. When the worst thing that could happen to you was getting fleeced buying a rug.
Grande.
These things could really use a hand.
Esta Zenobia. Corre, Zenobia, que te empalo.
Zenobia was waiting for Reynardo. She was alone, confident as always. Fire danced at the tips of her claws.
Are you here to surrender? She seemed as cocksure as he felt. But she didn't know he had the stone. And I've missed you too, love. He chuckled.
She spotted the stone and bolted without another word.
Perdón. Hoy. Abrir. Desgraciado.
Oh, what does the fox say? Asked one raven. Another one called back, "Go, I'm dying!" They both laughed hysterically.
Ay, que me han dado. Que me han dado mi madre. Dame esos melocotones. No son peras, pero bueno, le hago melocotones y punto. Es que dame esas peras son un poco peor. ¡Mierda! Me he engañado, te la hijo puta. No queda nada a nivel 23. Hay que hablar con Zenobia. Zenobia, que te he pillado.
Finally, Reynardo caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Please. No, said Zenobia. Not that way. Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her, he would not get the full power of the stone.
La primera vez me hice un cabrón.
How could he be the hero he wanted to be?
Ahora me toca decir que
Reynardo hesitated.
Te perdono.
Zenobia was his greatest enemy. She was the Emperor's daughter and his greatest general. And the single person Reynardo least wanted to remove from this world. Especially that way. She was holding her arms out before her, hands fluttering, fending him off with hopeless urgency. Nope. She was weaving a spell. He couldn't move. This thing is evil, she said. She slid the Iblis stone out of its slot in his gauntlet and slipped it into a bag. maybe we can learn from it. She eyed him with a strange, wry, apologetic look. I missed you too. And before he could move again, she was gone. Learn from the Iblis Stone? What did that mean? Would she take it to the palace or to the observatory on the Nexus? If she thought it was evil, she wouldn't want it in the palace. And, after all, it was evil, wasn't it? Maybe I can outrace her to the observatory, thought Renato. Cats can run faster, but foxes can run longer.
Vámonos. Estabas persiguiendo a Zenobia, que se dio con la jeva. La hija de puta. Nexo, suena a Nexo. ¿Qué decís vosotros? Ahí está.
Renato felt a little sick. Ever since Zenobia had taken the stone from him, he'd felt an ache that wouldn't go away. He missed it. He wanted it back. He needed it back. Why hadn't he killed her when he had the chance? She was the enemy. He hadn't even seen her in 14 years. Why had he hesitated? You're a sucker for an empowered woman. Renato kicked himself. Don't make that mistake again.
Recupera la piedra de Iblis. ¡Hola, qué hostia! Era cabrón. ¡Mierda! Esto es que no sé cómo lo consigo, tío. Mierda, me quita otra vez el puto combo de los cojones. Estoy desconcentrado, estoy intentando hacer florituras en la pelea y no me entero de las exclamaciones. Y no me entero. Uy, va, estoy para allá.
Zenobia thought the stone was evil. Was it?
Well, yes, but he still longed to have it back.
He'd felt so good killing ravens with it, and yet he'd felt unclean ever since he'd touched it. She confused him. She'd made him want to be a better fox, and then she'd abandoned him, never telling him she was the Emperor's daughter, never contacting him since. Well, who was she to tell him the stone was evil?
Renato wondered what would happen if he jumped. Would he be rescued by an emergency platform?
Me estoy colmando, ¿eh? Ahí está.
What kind of raven can't fly? Thought Renato.
Muy buena, Renato. Renato. ¿Qué coño era esto? ¿Por ahí? No, ahí no sé. Ah, pues sí, pero era por todo volver. ¿Para qué lo abro? Hostia, no está roto. Antes siempre que llegaba aquí estaba roto. Ahora no.
The scientist's toes were pointing arcane instruments at the stone and looking at it through prisms and reflections.
Mine, said Renato as he took back the stone.
Well, we need it for science,
Croaked the toads. So he killed them. He felt better immediately. Smarter, too.
I thought you'd never come for me,
Whispered the stone. Then, a far-speaker toad croaked in something like Zenobia's voice.
Leonardo. Leave the stone with the toads. It will swallow your soul. It will kill everyone you love.
That did seem vaguely familiar. But Renato had an army to lead, an empire to bring down.
Vale, pues.
I know
Dejarla
you
fuera.
fight this thing.
Zenobia continued in the far-speaker's croak.
You let me live. You know how evil it is. It will destroy you, Leonardo. It will destroy everything you love.
He had tried to convince himself that this time he would control the Iblis stone. But he could feel his will becoming brittle. She was right. He would get rid of it. Right? Now. Or now. He didn't really want to. I know. I'll go to the mountains, Renato thought. I'll find the strength to do it in the peace and quiet there.
Pues hemos rechazado la piedra Iblis después de habernos cepillado a todos los investigadores, a todos los científicos. Pues no tiene puto sentido, pero es uno de los finales. Ya tengo que ir hasta al desierto, ¿han dicho que voy? ¿Qué coño es esto?
As the Farfarer landed at the foot of the mountain,
El puto lapino, ¿qué hace aquí este? No sé qué hace el lapino, macho. Esos explotan. Estoy a punto de nivel 23.
there was an inscription. Praise the sun.
¿Es una coña de yoga? Mira, que estoy a puntito de nivel. Vamos. Toma nivel.
Bernardo told his friend how he had slaughtered the toads and how he had nearly slain Zenobia. A terrible burden, this Iblis stone, sympathized the rabbit. Yeah, but I need it for the rebellion. Do you now? You know, you were a pretty fine fighter before you were wielding a demonic decoration. Oddly, the sword wasn't whispering at him to kill the Pino. Up ahead in the mountains, there was a peaceful spot. If he could rid himself of his burden anywhere, it was there.
Qué raro, no entiendo por qué está aquí el latino. ¿Qué quiere hacer con la piedra el cabrón? De aquí salen otra vez malos. Pues no. Todo un toque, ala. ¿Dónde tengo que ir? ¿Por aquí? Pues por aquí.
Renato thought it would make a difference, snatching the Iblastone before the Emperor could get it. It would destroy him. Zenobia and Lapino, they were both trying to save him. Peace. That was what he needed.
Mira, subida de nivel. Vamos a ver. Vamos. De pasivas de combate tengo esto, el tiempo que no sé cómo coño se activa, cuando contrarrestando un ataque de último segundo. Bueno. Aumenta más tu resistencia máxima. Magia de espada. Pues venga, más resistencia. Resistencia a tope. Mira que está el Lapino, el cabrón. ¿Cómo anda, Lapino?
So much for peace and quiet. There was Lapino. Again. You're stronger than some dumb rock, Lapino said. Let's just bury it, and no one will ever find it again. Renato could feel the spirit energy of all those dead ravens inside him, pecking away. The rabbit was right. Even if the rabbit was a traitor, he was still right. He tore the Iblastone from his gauntlet and threw it into the hole Lapino had dug. The stone was silent, probably sulking. Now whoop those Imperials, said Lapino. Are you coming? Ah, no, I can't come with you. It's my old injury, you know. Recently, it's been acting up terrible. I'd be no use to you at all. So Renato boarded the Farfarer alone. Renato felt lonely on board the Farfarer. How could his old friend Lapino, miraculously escaped from the Empire, leave him to face the final battle alone? Well, he'd abandoned Lapino before, hadn't he? It was only fair. And of course he felt lonely. He'd given up the Iblastone and all the souls he fed it. Of course he felt alone. But he had done the right thing. It had been hard to do, but there was no better feeling than that. Zenobia would be so proud of him.
¿Y ahora qué? Estoy de la fase de los barcos un poco hasta el ojete. Un poco rollo.
The battle, alas, was not going well. He no longer had the stone, and he'd never gotten the core. Lapino wasn't with him, and he was up against Zenobia, out there somewhere, maneuvering the Emperor's forces. The rebels had been outnumbered from the start, and he still had that aching longing for the stone. But that is what it means to be a hero. He would fight his way to Zenobia. He would show her what he was capable of. Just him, with no diabolic accoutrements. He would win, no matter the odds.
Me cago en tu puta calavera, cabrón.
No, you don't smell any better when you're dead.
Yes, that was it. Pirouette, slash, parry, dodge. Renato had never done such good work in a fight. He wished the poets were allowed to sing of his exploits for his old age. Maybe he wouldn't have to kill Zenobia. Maybe he could defeat her and take her prisoner. Then he could turn the tide against the Emperor. If she wasn't crowned princess, once this was all over, she'd have more time for him, right?
Corre más rápido. No sé por qué, el personaje corre más rápido, mira. Muy raro, este juego está muy bugueado, chavales. Por lo menos el de PlayStation 4 hace lo que le da la gana.
Soon he'd confront the Emperor.
Mira, va echando pipa.
Again. This time,
Muy rápido.
he'd make an end of him. He'd screwed up last time, but he had a good feeling about this time.
Final de la segunda historia, a ver qué es lo que pasa. Mira, se corre echando hostias.
By some miracle, Renato fought his way to the Emperor's ship. He was exhausted, bleeding, but he'd found the strength to reject the stone. Zenobia came out of the ship. "Renato!" she shouted. And then she fell down and died. Lapino was behind her, wielding a sword that seemed to suck all the light out of the sun. "You idiot! You threw the stone away!" cried Lapino. "You said it was evil." "It hates sanctimonious prigs like you," laughed Lapino. "We're having a grand old time." Renato turned and ran. But no matter where he ran, Lapino jumped in front of him until Renato was cornered. That boy could hop. "You wouldn't do this to an old friend, would you?" cried Renato. "You mean this?" said Lapino, as he slid the sword into Renato's guts. "Damn it! Again?" Oh, again? He already had all the secrets he needed. He was sure of that. He must have not used them the right way. Ah, What was the best, worst mistake you could make? Probably trusting that traitor Lapino.
Nueva historia completada, la número 2. ¿Para qué son los amigos? ¿Qué tipo de héroe eres? Un héroe que no necesita perder sus derechos diabólicos para vencer por habilidades insuperables. Y una recompensa que no vale para nada. Pues ahora he visto, chavales. En la historia número 2, el Lapino nos la clava por la espalda. Otra vez. Así que bueno, dejo el gameplay que se está haciendo larguirucho. Y la próxima vez haremos la 3 y la 4, yo creo. Venga, hala.